I'm Marilyn Davis, and I'm filling in for, help me his name, the guy who does it? No, but I am being your master of ceremony this evening for the Bay Area Python users group, or enthusiasts, or whatever we want to call ourselves. And tonight we have this special program of 4 demonstrations of integrated development environments. And I'm going to be first. Okay, it is Dennis Reinhardt, whom I'm filling in for, because he's not here tonight. And also, I am the first speaker, and I'm going to be speaking about Emacs and developing Python code under Emacs. And I apologize that we didn't seem to be able to get the resolution set up so that you can see the actual slideshow. So it's a little tacky. It's always something, you know, always something. Okay, so my integrated development environment starts with my data hand keyboard, because it's really important to me to watch out for repetitive stress symptoms, because I am a sufferer of that if I'm not careful. So this even has dots in it. I'm going to show misspells too. Well, I'm sorry. So I hope that you can make out that I have a very special keyboard that has like 5 switches on each finger, and I'm very relaxed all the time. And this is a pillow for lumbar support in there somewhere. Okay. These are the reasons why I use Emacs. One is to avoid mousing, because mousing is a big issue for people who have trouble with repetitive stress symptoms. And another is that my fingers know it. I've done it enough. Yes, please.
So with the RSI, do you have a problem with all the funny the key combinations, the control key?
I do not. I have no trouble at all with my data hand. I get a little trouble when I go off to the mouse. But another person might have a different issue. Yes, please.
The other thing about Emacs is it works fine over SSH.
True. Emacs works fine over SSH. What a good point. I'm not making that point, but now I wish I was. But we should keep going, because I'm allowed exactly 18 minutes, as each of us are. And so you want to get through to the demo part. Okay, so, and it's a big reason why I just continue to love it is that it's very flexible in complex situations, and I'm going to be demonstrating a complex situation to show you that. I love it that it does automatic backups. It has saved my neck many times, and I'm just simply a GNU fan, and I'm also a fan of Richard Stallman. Okay, when I move over to the demo side, and we have to all cross our fingers that it all shows up somewhat all right, I'm going to demo these things. Accessing a repository. I'm going to show you a complicated situation. In fact, I'm going to talk about the situation first. I want to show you kill and yank. It's one of my favorite features. It's Emacs version of cut and paste. Very quick and flexible. I want to show you how to edit all the files in an application, because it keeps track of all your files. If you tell it, you have to set something up. I'm not going to do the setup. I'm going to show you the result of having set it up. And I will just show you my automatic backups from doing all this. Okay, going down to the next one. Here's my complex situation I've been working on. And the thing we're going to be debugging is my PyDaemon. And it has a socket. It's up all the time, and it has a socket listening for requests from our webmail interface, as well as from my MTA, which is XM, because it allows you to speak to a socket through the configuration file. It's really a powerful MTA. And all these things also talk to my SQL. So my situation is that I have all this kind of set up, knit together, and I have to get in there to debug. And in order to prepare for tests, while I'm running, and I'm running live now with this thing we made, is that while I'm running, whenever a message comes in, and this is on my live system, it sends important details to my Python daemon over that socket. If it is just routing a message, I'll be calling route mail. It will be calling route mail from what is said in the socket, and then my route mail will make some decisions and send instructions back. What I do to prepare for testing is that every time a message comes in, I store on a separate little file the conversation that happened over the socket. so that if something goes wrong, if something breaks or lands where I didn't want it to, I can find it and test it again through my code. So this Python daemon not only has route mail in it, it has everything that all those interfaces might want to call, so that it's up all the time. And you know that that's a benefit. That's a good thing you want to do if you're trying to make a big Python thing. Okay, here is my route mail. It's pretty much all there is to it. And when it's called from the Python daemon calls main. And that input there is a socket, so that my route mail, I instantiate a message object, and it reads that socket and does what it needs. So depending on which program I call, it gets different information over the socket. It knows its own information. And so I always have a little function called PDB, so that I make fewer mistakes. I name it the same thing every time. And it then calls the same main, but it gets, makes a fake socket. And you can see here that that's what happens, something called a fake socket, which overrides some things. And so that's what gets passed into main. So then I am set up through my program to be able to test the program aside from the big situation. While the big situation is running, it's really a nice thing, because I can change my program and test it without it affecting my big situation. Now we're going to talk about Emacs. And what is really handy about Emacs is macros. Emacs stands for editing macros. And in fact, my favorite thing is to make a keyboard macro, because you can do it right on the fly, whatever you need. And you do Control-X open paren, and whatever keystrokes you do in the middle, then you can do Control-X close paren, and you have that set in a keyboard macro. And subsequently, I can say Control-X-E, and it's going to do it. And in fact, I can say escape 1000 Control-X-E, and it'll do it 1,000 times. So this is a really handy thing to have going in your development environment, I think. I know all environments are definitely handy. So okay, now we're ready to go over the demo. And we need for everybody to hold your breath and hope that nothing goes wrong. That looks definitely wrong. Oh, look, I don't see it here, but it's up there. That looks wonderful. Okay, we're going to log in as root. You laugh at me for logging in as root? It's just my laptop. And we're going to be at Dorman. And we're going to do, I can't see, so you have to scream at me if I'm making a typo. Demo notes. And my plan is to follow these notes. Okay, so first I'm going to bring, here I am in Emacs. Got that? And so I'm going to make a shell. And now I have access to everything in the shell while I'm still in Emacs. And I'm here, and I'm going to do an SVN. So SVN is right here. Revert -R. From when I practiced, I messed up everything. And it should be able to do a revert. I don't need to be on the network to do a revert. So that's all I have to do to access my SVN. It's right there handy for me. And then I want to call 0. Here is a file that was made by my Python daemon with the input-output. And so these are the things that XM sends to my Python daemon, and you can see it's calling route mail. I'm going to get rid of that output at the bottom of the screen, although it really doesn't matter. I'm smart enough not to care, but it's neater. The output is then neater. And to cut, I'm doing Control-K. And here I'm going to do Control-K again, and again, and again. And Control-K is how you cut. And it cuts the line up to a new line character, or it cuts the new line character. So every line I have to do Control-K twice. As long as I'm doing Control-K, everything that I cut is in one kill ring entry. It's called a kill ring entry, one entry. And with a Control-Y, it comes right back. And in fact, with a Control-Y, I can do it again. But let me get rid of all this because that was our point. And we want to save that as tempx. Oops. That's good. Right here I want 1. Am I doing good? Doing good. Yep. Okay, now I don't need to look at that anymore, except notice that what this is saying is that Marilyn at delivery.com is sending mail to XXYX93. So this is a new address to my system, and I have to, and my program's going to put it in my database. So every time I run a test on my debugger, I need to get it out of my database to start my test again. And so Emacs is going to do all this for me with just a few keystrokes once I set it up. So let's get rid of that. Okay, and we're going to have 2, and we're going to, I'm not telling you all these things because they're not so interesting, manipulating stuff. Okay, now it's telling me to, let me get this in my kill ring actually, just so I have that one because that's the hardest to type. Okay, and then it told me that I should cd to exim because that's where that's called from. And I want to show you, now what I'm showing you is Python debugger stuff because it integrates with that. And if I start my Python in this directory and my debugger in this directory, and there's a .pdbrc there, then these breakpoints will be set. And this is a very handy thing because I can reset the breakpoints here without changing my setup. And you'll see what I mean now because we're going to set up a macro, a keyboard macro. I want to make sure I have that all on the screen so you can help me. Okay, here we go. First of all, I'm going to do the starting thing, Control X open. And it should tell me down there, defining keyboard macro. So far so good. Now I'm going to call do.py. And that's a little Python program that accesses my MySQL. So I have a little interface. And here I'm going to cheat by doing that. And I get that out of my database. And then I want to quit that do program, and now I want to go to Python. And I want to import PDB, and I want to import, scream if I'm making a mistake, route mail dot, no dot. You're not my students, you know. Okay, so I'm importing route mail. Hello? And then I want to say pdb.run. And here I say route mail.pdb, because if you paid attention, you'll see that tempx is the default file name, although I could give a file name in the arguments there. Okay, am I doing good? All righty. Oh, that's a good sign to see those breakpoints. All righty, we're in. Now let's see. What I'm most likely to forget in real life is to close off that macro. And then I've done a whole bunch of extra stuff. So now I'm in my program. Let's see. Is that true? Nah. I don't know why, but sometimes, and today, and I don't know why, it must be the weather, it doesn't show my source code. But if I pull my source code up, then it seems to be keeping track. So yeah, here I am. Now I'm in the debugger, and I can, if I want to set a new breakpoint that it remembers, I put it in that .pdbrc. And I can do everything you can do with a debugger. We're going to print up, well, we don't have that one yet. Well, let's print self.status. That's a nice thing. See, it's always comforting to see OK. Okay, get that? Okay, so let's continue on out of there, and now I'm done. And so there might be things I want to do and think, oh, I didn't want to get the shell all done. I got a little zealous there. Now I'm in the position to do Control XE. And I'm right there again. That's applause for Richard Stallman. That is so cool, isn't that? Okay, so let's go back then to our demo notes. And I want to do just a little more about the kill ring. And I'm just going to kill a few more things. Now I have 3 entries in my kill ring, and I want to show you that if I do a control yank, it shows me my most recent kill. But if I do then, it has to be right then, an escape yank, I get the next most recent kill. And again, and again, and we'll come around, there's that most recent kill again. So it keeps, I don't know how many it keeps, but I know everything is configurable in Emacs. So it keeps reminding me, keeps all that in my kill ring as long as I don't bring down my Emacs. Now, I'll keep my Emacs up for days and days, by the way, days and days, for all these reasons. Okay, so now then, I set up tags. I got to check my time because I have to just quit if my time is over. And 3 minutes. Did I start a little late? Well, anyway.
Remember, you could go extra because we're missing one.
Do you think we're missing Mike? Mike, are you here yet? Okay, no. This timing that's up there on the board is the four demo timing. So that's the big thing. And if there's time, I want to show you finding a flag. A tag. And let's do that by, let me put my cursor someplace interesting like that. And let's see if this works. Oh, Control G. And I want to do escape dot. And it looks for the most local thing it could have a tag about. The tag being the name of a function. And it's going to find me a function definition. And okay, I like that one. And it's asking me if this is where I want to be. Yes, it is. And there's that function definition. But sometimes you might prefer, you don't want just function definitions. You want actually to find all occurrences. And let's skip that. And let's skip to the tags query replace. Because that's more powerful, isn't it? It's scary how powerful that is, wouldn't you say? And, okay, let me get the whole thing up there. Whoop, 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 whoop. Search and replace. Let me get the whole thing. This is when I practiced, so let's do what I practiced. And so I do escape X, tags, query, Q-U-E-R, query, replace. And I'm going to take all my instances of alias and turn them into other. And this is like a regular replace in that if I say yes, it happens. I'm going to say no this time. And this time I'll say yes. And it goes on to the next. Either of those, it goes on to the next. Yes. If I get bored with that, I can do an exclamation. And it finished that whole file, changing everything.
Does it match base?
It will or not. If I put in lower, it doesn't. I don't know. I only have one functional ear, so I don't know where that came from. But if I put in lower, it does not, and it replicates the case it sees. If I put in something else, then it does. And I'm sure that there's ways to make, you can do regular expressions, too, in this. Yes, please.
How will the syntax work with Python or like overloaded functions?
Oh, I wish I had shown you just a different one, because if I had done in-out, it goes from one to the next. It'll take you to the next overloaded function definition. It goes right through them, just how you want it to work. And so here, let me do this, and then I'll get off the floor. I am going through all my files, program files that have it in the word alias. And it should be done. There we go. And at the bottom it says all files processed. Now, what you might want to do is save each of these. There, I saved that one. And then get out of it. But now that's tedious. Hello. So I'm just going to get out of Emacs itself. And then it asks me at the bottom, do I want to save them? And I'm going to say yes to some and no to some. Oh. Oh, yes. Let's get out. Now let's see. Any file that has a squiggle on it was the old version before I did this save. It does that automatically. I don't know if you can stop it. I suppose you could. Anything that has a pound sign on it, that's one that I said, no, I don't want to save. So it keeps a backup anyway, even when I say I don't. I need this. I don't know about the rest of you, but I need this. And in fact, it keeps this backup quite recent so that when my power goes down, it has a recent backup. And I can configure if I want it to do after so many keystrokes, every so many keystrokes, or so many minutes. Okay, I'll quit now, and we will move on. Thank you very much, and we will move on, thank you, to Keith. And here we have, okay, shall I let you introduce yourself? Here we have Keith Dart, and he's going to talk about VIM, which is maybe, or do you say Vim?
Vim.
Vim.
That's what I say.
That's what he says, and I have my notes real handy about where you work and what a great programmer you are.
I work at Google right now.
All right, he's a contractor at Google. So, all righty.
Okay, this, as most IDEs today are graphical pretty much, so I'm going to demonstrate Vim in its graphical mode. Vim has two modes basically. It uses curses, and it also can use graphics. And as Marylin said with Emacs, you can also use it over SSH or Telnet or whatever you want from a remote location. Okay. And I have a little presentation here. And I'm going to do a little presentation first, and then I'll get into the demo just like Marylin did. Okay, so this is Vim, the ultimate IDE for Python. That's what I call it. And it's created by a guy named Bram Moulinar. That's him. And a contributor by legions of people, programmers, over many, many years. So it has many, many features. It has lots and lots of basic editing features, similar to Emacs in many ways. But I'm not going to cover all of those because those are the basic editing features. I'm going to concentrate on the integrated development side of things. But it being a general purpose text editor like Emacs, you can use it for many, many types of text editing functions, not just software development, but also writing emails or editing lists of text or whatever you need that's just plain text. And for that purpose, it's you can use it for, well, since you use it for everything and you become accustomed to it, editing config files and whatever, I start using it for anything I want to do, including development. And I really dislike having to learn another editor in some other development environment in order to use their system. So what I've done is I have put together a system of my own, which is kind of centered around Vim. Some of the features of Vim are, it's basically command-driven. You have two modes, basically, an insert and a command mode where you use the same command keys, and that enables you to do some commands a lot faster, because they're the same keys that you use regularly. Global editing features, global search and replace, and a simple command line. It's multilingual, supports Unicode, has automatic commands when you load files of certain types. It can automatically run some things and set some up for you. Syntax coloring for many different kinds of source files, including Python, of course. Edit multiple files. Session recovery, just like Marylin was saying at the very last, it saves a swap file, and if you crash or if your session, if you're going over SSH or something, your network goes down, you only lose a very little amount of work. It's highly customizable, many, many different options. You can't even cover all of them in days probably. But it has, in addition to that, plugins. You can extend the functionality. You can integrate with CMS systems like Subversion and CMS. It has a tag system like Emacs that can jump you to the different definitions of different things. You can run make from it, the build system integration. It has a client-server mode. You can load a file in it from a client invocation command. And best of all, you can embed Python in it. So you can actually extend it in the Python language if you want to. Okay, Vim follows the Unix philosophy of doing one thing, doing it well, and working with other programs. Unix itself is an IDE. The old and traditional Unix was designed for developers, basically. Vim works with other programs very well. You use external filters, and you can call make, as I said, and the graphical one supports drag and drop, and you can also call shell scripts and do anything that you can do from a shell script. And also, as I said, it has client-server mode, so you can invoke it in different ways to use either graphics mode or tell the server what to do. So, in order to integrate an IDE component, what I have done is I use Python, or I develop in Python, so I have some tools written in Python also to assist in developing Python. A set of libraries. I have also some shell scripts, some Vim plugins. I can invoke an interpreter in a shell, which I use RxVT Unicode terminal for that, or I can invoke it from a shell. I also have some integration with a graphical file manager called Rox. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I'll demonstrate that later. Can generate tag files with the C tags or exuberant C tags. You can call, as I said, Subversion or Perforce or CVS from it. I have a system where you can bring up the Python documentation in a web browser. I use Epiphany for that, or you can use the dev help program, which comes with GNOME. And of course, you can run your text through any external filter like sort or format or grep or anything like that you might need. That anything that you can do from a command line, you can filter through right inside your editing buffer. So Vim becomes like the center of control of this system. I have shell scripts to allow a single instance of Vim to be running, because Vim has, in its latest incarnations, it's rather heavyweight anymore. So it kind of has a long startup time. It's kind of lost that advantage that it used to have the Emacs. But I had compensated for that by running a persistent Vim and then telling it to load files from a shell script that I always keep up. I can use Rox Filer to drag and drop files onto it, and it'll load the file. I have built-in macros and setups for running the Python I'm using. I can check things out or edit them from, or tell it to go into edit mode from Vim using some of the plugins. And there's also a Python debugger that runs in a shell. So, okay, on to the demo. And we can observe Vim in action. And by the way, this is an S5 presentation, runs in a web browser. I don't know if you know what that is. Okay, so we have here a shell. This is RxV Unicode plus Z shell running in it. And we have a Rox graphical filer open to some source code. And so I could scan my list here, and I can say pick one. I'll pick this one, and I double click on it, and it's already set up to invoke a shell script that will in turn start up Vim. And now I can edit Vim this way. If I have, because of the auto commands in Vim, it's already set up a Python mode that has some macros already pre-configured, and also creates a pull-down menu. So you can run it in a terminal, but since it exits right away, the terminal exits, or you can run it interactively, which invokes another terminal and runs or invokes Python on this file in another terminal and invokes its interactive mode. And then what it does is actually, because it's running as main, it runs the main section here. This is very common in Python, where if name equals main, and very often I and lots of other people put little tests in here, self-tests. And so when you're developing, you want to cycle through a change and then test it and change and test it, you just invoke it with a couple keystrokes and start up a new shell, and then you can run your test, and then at the end of it you're in an interactive mode where you can do some more poking around and checking ad hoc testing if you wish. Let's see. The other feature that I do is I remap some of the keys, like ZZ is usually exits Vim, but I've changed it to where it simply closes the buffer, and so that the Vim stays persistent. Now if I double click on this again, it just pops right up very quickly. If I double click on another, it pops that up again, and then I have keys mapped to Alt, left and right, where I can switch between the files very quickly. And I can cut and paste between them. Oh, by the way, this redness is another setup is that if in Python sometimes it's sensitive to mixed tabs and spaces, and if a file has tabs in it, when it's in spaces mode, they show up as these red hash marks just to alert me that that they're bad. So I have also a tabbed editing mode where it always inserts tabs, and that's what I use. I have to switch it to when I'm editing this file, because a long time ago I started editing Python using tabs only, but nowadays and a lot of other people use spaces. So I can switch between using spaces and tabs by also another keyboard macro. Let's see. Another feature of Vim is pressing the hash or the star will search and then automatically highlight a keyword or whatever the cursor is under. So if you want to make sure that you have, say, an identifier that's spelled the same as it is where you defined it or use it, you can do this, and you'll make sure that the highlighting matches the word this way. And you can also jump around to those keywords very quickly, like this. Let's see. Well, any questions so far? Anybody got any questions? So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, so I'm just kind of going ad hoc here. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a command to, let's say you want to select a block and indent it?
Oh, yeah, you can do that. You select, you can use visual highlighting, capital V, select your section, and then you'd use Alt and then, or no, or Shift, I'm sorry, and then this, left, or use the greater than or less than signs, and it will shift that whole block that way. And if you do the U key, which is undo, you can undo what you did. So it can or you can do Control R to redo what you did. So there's also a undo ring or in Vim. By the way, I'm using Vim 7 here, which has some extra features also. But you can see that I've unindented that one, but I can always go back and forth, whoops, between them, like this. So that's very easy to do. I've also added, well, the Vim 7 adds some balloon help features like a lot of other IDEs have, so that if I put my mouse cursor on there on a built-in keyword, it'll pop up something with the doc string for that. But this is just experimental right now, so it only shows the built-in keywords. It doesn't show anything else. So if I put on something else, it shows an exception. I need to fix that. But if you just want to know, like say, property function call is, it'll pop it up right there for you just by mousing over it, like this. Oh, I mentioned drag and drop. This is another way you can open a file. Just pull it from the filer and drop it into there, and it opens that file. And then I can then switch back and forth between them. Whoops, I need to focus it like this. And again, just running a couple keystrokes away, I can invoke that, save it automatically, run it into a terminal, and then I can inspect my code or invoke something and do some ad hoc testing that way. I also have some unit tests built in, and I'll demonstrate the debugger that I have. This forcibly throws an exception just to demonstrate the debugger. I don't know if you can see that. Let me move this. This is kind of a somewhat enhanced debugger, and it has some commands that you can show the local variables that are compiled, and in addition it will show any that have been stuffed in there later. It shows what it was called as. You can see your place in your source file with a little arrow there, and you can see your backtrace also. And it's colorized just to make it a little bit easier. and you can do your usual going up and down the stack, showing your location and listing your files again. If you were to get an exception when you ran an interactive mode earlier, it would automatically pop you in the debugger, and then you can debug it from the point where it failed. So it's very quick to do the development and test cycle by doing some edits, running the few keystrokes to start it in a terminal. If everything works, you'll get the interactive prompt. If it throws an exception, it throws you into this debugger. And that's all automatic. Whoops. Habit. Okay, so you can do that. Let's see, what else? Sorry? Oh, tags, you mean? Is that what you mean?
You can have an outline of classes.
Oh, you mean like collapsing and stuff? Yeah. It has, this latest feature of Vim has the ability to collapse, but I don't actually use it, and so I don't think I even set it up. But it can do it, but I don't think I can demo it.
Don't you have the class, you show the split screen with the classes, and you see all the class structure?
Oh yeah, I think there is a plugin that does that, but I don't use that either. So I don't have it here. Pardon? I probably should, but yeah, I'm just showing how I typically use it. Oh, any question? I actually wrote it myself. So I just took the original PDB code, and then I have a CLI framework that I had written previously and kind of melded the two together. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I have an open source project that I also do that you can also. It's on Subversion if you want to get it. I can tell you later though about that. If after this you can ask me about it. Yeah, I won't bother with it right now. But after this demonstration, I'll show you where it is. Okay, so let's see. Any other questions? Am I up?
Good.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. You have a question, JJ? Oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah, it says syntax highlighting of many different languages, not even languages, but config files, and also it can meld them together, like if you have Python embedded in a template of some kind of web application framework, it'll highlight all of them. You can also customize all the colors, and oh, I was going to show you also the other extra feature is that because Python has this special keyword called yield, I've had a special colorization for it that reverses it so that you can immediately tell that you have a generator function, without having to look there for the yield yourself. It kind of jumps out at you. So
We'll have to save some for random access.
Right.
Maybe all the demo people will be available then. So thank you.
So Xcode is the IDE I use when I'm programming on my Mac. It is a free IDE developed by Apple, and they ship it with OS X. So if you have a Mac, you can either, it came with a CD that has this on it, you can download a version from Apple's website. It's a decent Python environment. It's mainly targeted actually for Objective-C, for Java, for C++. Those are sort of Apple's main languages. But it plays well with Python. It makes a decent Python environment, and if you're going to be developing applications for Mac OS X, it makes a great environment because it integrates really well with Apple's interface builder. It integrates well with their Cocoa application framework. I have sort of a summary of this talk and a few extra links to resources on my website. You can get to that through the Bay Piggies website. My name is a link to my website. You can get the resources there. Or you can talk to me afterwards. I'll be glad to give them to you. So let's go ahead and start looking at it. The first feature, it's kind of bad news. No debugger. So Xcode has this nice graphical debugger, you know, stack traces, and you can go ahead and it highlights the code that you're stepping through. But it doesn't work with Python. So you have to look somewhere else if you're a big fan of debuggers. You have to use something like PDB, perhaps. Other than that, though, it's a nice environment. So it kind of depends on how important a debugger is to you. It has sort of the standard graphical debugger features. A nice thing about it is that it's a native Mac application, so it feels right at home on your computer. You have the same keyboard shortcuts that you're used to. You have the same control layout and so on. So it feels right if you're used to using your Mac. The editor, sort of a standard, you know, you have the syntax highlighting. It has some level of code assist. I have yet to find a good code assist that works well with Python. Something about the dynamic nature of the classes. If you start adding member variables in class methods, the code assist doesn't really know about it. But you know, you can do things like start typing rate, and it pops up a thing that helps you. It works somewhat, but not really well enough for me to use it all the time. The interface is quite flexible. Sort of the standard layout is a separate window for every source file, and then one window for the main project. But if you don't like that, you can tell it to group all the source windows together. You could turn that window off if you wanted this thing to be smaller and just kind of sit over at the edge. And if you group them all together, then they're all in one editor. You can flip back and forth with the menu. If you're more sort of from a Visual Studio background, you want it all in one giant window, you can turn this on, make it full screen. So kind of set it up the way you want. Let me put that back. When you're actually in the editor, they have some nice features. They have, this perhaps was not the right file to demonstrate that. They have drop-downs. Basically gives you a summary of the file, which I can't find a good one to demo that with. So, you know, it shows you the class, the methods that are there, and you can select one. It jumps straight to it. You can select a different method. It'll jump to that method. If you like putting lots of classes in one file, that's a nice feature. Another way to jump around, they have a thing called bookmarks. I haven't seen this in any other IDE. I assume it's there, and I just haven't noticed it. You can set bookmarks, so I bookmarked the main function of my app, bookmarked this class definition. You can jump back and forth that way. They have a find in project, kind of a standard thing, so I can find every instance of convert. I could do a global replace if I wanted to replace all of that, if I decided I didn't like the name convert anymore. It has integration with Subversion, Perforce, CVS. It is not something I'm going to demo because I don't have the network connection. It uses the file merge program to do the comparisons. That's another Apple application. It looks like that. It gives you a nice side-by-side graphical diff. It has an integrated help system, which is helpful if you like that sort of thing. Like Keith, though, I have a web browser running with the help loaded in that. So it has the integrated help. I don't use it. So that's just sort of the basic environment. Again, a nice Python IDE. But where it really shines is if you want to make programs for OS X using Python, then the integration with Apple's tools really starts to shine. There's two main tools. How am I doing for time? I'm doing all right. Sure. Let's go ahead and make a new project. A lot of the help for Xcode and Python comes from this PyObj-C project. It's basically the Python bindings for the Cocoa application library. And they also give you some extra tools like these project templates came from them. So a lot of the credit for how this works goes to that project. So we can just, I'll just set up a quick little project right here. Unfortunately, my computer shows this bug where it doesn't make the executable for you. It's supposed to. Let's see if it runs. All right, so there's just the quick application. The template, the project template, has already set up our distutils file for us. So this is the distutils file. It sort of takes care of that. You don't have to worry about it. And it runs it through a distutils packager that gives you a .app, which is sort of the app bundle is the way Mac OS X programs are packaged. So behind the scenes, when I did that run, it packaged it all up into an app and ran it. So you don't have to worry about that. It kind of takes care of it for you. The other thing that you get is the, not that, interface builder. Let me close that one. This is kind of like Glade. Visual Studio has something kind of like this. You can, I'm going to go ahead and just make a little decimal to hex converter just to show sort of how the widgets drag out. Sorry. The little lines that it's giving me, positioning guides, they sort of help you line stuff up according to the Aqua user interface guidelines. Help you get everything consistent. The Cocoa framework has pretty strong model view controller architecture, so that kind of takes care of setting up the view. Let's do the model. This is kind of a weird thing. You can define classes through their interface builder. So I'm going to subclass NS object, call it numbers, instantiate the class. So now we have our model object. Apple gives us some controllers for free. I'll add one of those. And then we will hook up the controller to the model, connect it. And the last thing, we need to hook up the views to the model. I'm going to do that with bindings, which is an Apple technology for basically getting the data back and forth between the view and the model. We'll bind this one to a key called decimal, and this one to a key called hex. So I'll go ahead and save that. I'm also going to set that flag and that flag, so as I type, it'll continually update. So that's the interface. PyObjC gives us a tool called nib class builder. You run that on the interface file that we just made, and it spits out sort of skeleton code for your various classes. I'm going to steal the numbers one that we just made. I'm going to paste it in here. And then to save time, I'm going to cheat and just fill in that class the rest of the way. I'll sort of explain what it's doing briefly, but I don't want to go into the details. Decimal is going to get hooked up to the decimal key that we bound the one text field to. The other text field we bound to hex, and it has a getter and a setter. And then the last thing we have to do is tell Cocoa, hey, when we change decimal, notify everyone that hex is also changed, because those two are tied together. I have to import this library, and I have to add that as well. Hopefully it'll run. All right. So if we type in different stuff, we get different values. If we type in, something down here, we get that. So it's kind of a weird thing to have this interface builder that's also kind of a graphical code editor. It's a little weird, but it's very powerful. It fits well with Python. It's very fast. Python's very fast. One more thing I wanted to show. Just throw on a button there to quit. I think I have time. The quit button will basically call an action on one of our classes. So I'll add an action to our app delegate called quit. And then I will connect the quit button to that action. And I'll save it. And we'll jump back. Go ahead and write the quit. When you're using PyObject-C, all the colons that Objective-C likes to use turn into underscores. So that's why there's underscores there. NS application is a Cocoa class. Shared application picks up our application, and we will tell it to terminate. So that's what it takes to hook up a button. Are there any questions? Yes? Yes, unfortunately.
Have you made large things with it?
I have not. The largest thing I've made is not available under this user account. It's basically a simulation of stewing behaviors for little AI creatures, but it's not terribly large, and it's certainly not in a releasable state. All right. Again, the sample code here and some links to references are on my website.
Thank you, Mark. That was really neat. I enjoyed that one. It was cool, huh?
It was very cool.
So here we have Mike Cheponis,
Yes.
and he's going to be talking to us about Wing IDE, which
Yes.
he promises is going to knock us out. So he's going to have
Well,
us all salivating.
I mean, I think it was very nice having those other presentations, and I really appreciate them because I did learn some things, and I was really impressed with this last presentation, the Macintosh. I definitely want to get rid of this PC business and get on the Mac like my daughter and wife, but at the moment, business seems to prefer the PC world. Well, the first thing I hope some of you noticed about Wing IDE is that bringing it up the first time is mighty slow. This is a 3-year-old laptop, and it's a 1 gigahertz Pentium, nothing really special. It's 760, 3/4 of a gig or whatever of memory, so it's not especially powerful in terms of what we have available today. But so it does take a little bit of time for it to come up. That I think is my major concern about this. I think these other things are fairly minor, but that's sort of something, if you have a slow machine, you might want to consider. The Wing IDE runs not only on Windows, but on Linux and Macintosh as well. So it runs across all the platforms, and really, that's one of the things that attracted me to Python in the first place, which I imagine is probably some of the things that attracted you to Python, was the fact that it was so cross-platform, and that meant that you could really write it once and run it everywhere. And Wing, I have not used Wing on any platform except Windows, but I do run a lot of Linux systems and also NetBSD systems, but typically as servers and not so much in the sort of desktop environment. But not only can you get Wing to work on those environments, but if you need to, they will let you compile the source code on your machine if you have some particular weird OS that they don't completely support. So the first thing you see about this when you bring this up are these Wing tips. They're just little, just like you might expect in any sort of environment. I find them kind of useful if I can at least spend a second looking at them. It's just, and any complicated tool like this, it's hard to learn it all. And so it's really a matter of learning that piece of it that you need to get your job done, or at least that's the way I look at it. So what I'm really going to show you are stuff that I use, and nowhere near the whole environment, because it's way too big to show you in this short time, if I knew it all anyway, which I don't. So so here's this environment, and I thought the first thing I'd do is show you how these different windows make available certain features. So I'll start with this one on the bottom. What we have is this is where the exceptions and stack, and so when we're running some code, we'll get to see this stuff here, and I'll show you that right now. We'll just come up here, start a new file. I'll say y equals 0, or 9 divided by 0 rather, something that generates an exception. hit F5. This allows me to set some arguments if I'm going to have a command line type arrangement if I want. I don't need to have this each time. You can see there's a checkbox right here. I can uncheck this and have this come up. But the purpose is here. I'm going to leave that on. So when we execute, and we're going to save this random file. That sounds like a good plan. And that seems like a good enough place at the moment. And anyway, we unfortunately have a zero division error, and there it is, and we can find out where it is. And you can see that this is very simple. But if you had a large, complicated program, this would tell you where this exception occurred. It wouldn't necessarily be a divide by zero. It would just be an uncaught exception. And I found this really, really helpful. Plus, there's the stack data. In this case, it's not especially interesting, but there it is as well. Over here are a number of different, I just made that go away, a number of different tabs, which are useful for seeing what your program is doing. In this case, debug IO is what your program, when your program prints to the, or accepts input, this is where you do it in this particular window. But what makes Python, at least for me, so powerful is the ability for me to drop into a shell, type something else, and try it out. What does that do? Oh, okay, great. So now I know what it does. If you don't use that feature of Python, you're really not using the power of it. But the thing about Wing is, of course, maybe you have some sort of complicated thing that you're developing right here, and you generated some big list, you're doing some test case or whatever it is. And you say, well, you know what? What I really need is I need to add something here, so I can split these like this. Or I can say, well, geez, let me insert another Python shell. Great. So now I have another shell there, which is completely independent of the first. And I can do that sort of ad infinitum. And this whole, so I'll get rid of that stuff. Now I'll show you a little bit about this. On this side is your project and source, I keep hitting that, and source browsers. And then down here is the so-called source assistant, which I'll show you about right now. So I'm going to type in a little program to show you just sort of how this works. Oh wait, let me get rid of all the stuff I have here first, please. The first thing, or rather that I want to tell you about the editors are, it can emulate many kinds of editors. It does Visual Studio key bindings, VI Vim key bindings, brief key bindings, and of course the only important key bindings, Emacs. and that's in fact why I bought this product. I looked at all of the different products out there, and I said, which one has Emacs key bindings and sort of in an IDE? Because I'll probably use the extra features, but I know I'll use Emacs. So anyway, this is what I have it set for at the moment, and they just come out with this new 2.1 version, which better emulates real Emacs, because it was a little bit funky at first, but it's actually a lot nicer now. So anyway, so I'm going to type in this program. It's a small. So you can see immediately you get this source assistant, right? So it's just like standard IDEs. Type that from, in this case, it happens to know. I'm typing 2 keys to do this. And remember, once you get good at this, you can really go fast. Okay, so, and then, now, that's a mistake, so let me show you how that works. So I'll type FL, what I really wanted was this one here, and I can type tab or escape. Tab gives me it, escape gets rid of it, and then just stops the symbol at that size. So, okay, so this is a pretty simple application, excuse me while I type it in here for a moment. But when I tried this in the back just before here, I made a mistake doing it, and it was actually pretty cool because we could see how the debugger works. Let me just type this, and you can see that some of these are available, but not all. Oh, I should bring up this, because now, as I'm working on this, you can see that I'm getting some additional information about this type box, the likely class, and what it is, and some definition about it. So let's see. So let me just keep going, though. Wrong, right? Okay, and oops. So I find this feature helpful, but you have to also remember that most of the time, the typing in of the code is not the thing that really takes the time. It's debugging afterwards, and I think that this thing is. I'll tell you some of the features of that in a moment too. Probably some of you already know what this does, but I'm almost finished here. Get this, the big forever while loop. Of course, you're going to get automatic indentation. In fact, there's one other, let me show you a quick feature here. So I can take some sort of subset of this stuff, like this. I'm using the mouse now, and I can, let's see. So you sort of indent that sort of as much as you want, or dedent it as much as you like. You can match indents to other pieces of code. So doing that, so you can grab code and paste it in really fast and very fast and get it where you need to go. Mostly, I think this sort of, I think of it as like a programmer amplifier, which is why I really rather like this. Let me finish this here. So we're almost here. I can't spell. Pause. That's wrong. Pause. There we go. Okay. All right, so that's the rest of this program. Now, in order to run a program, we hit F5, or you can do some other things. Once again, let's save this, and OK. And if I've made some mistakes, it hopefully will tell us. But if I haven't, oh, I guess I didn't make any mistakes, so I apologize for not making mistakes. But anyway, this is this little program that we just typed in right here. And of course, you know, this is standard Python stuff that does all the right scaling. Remember now, we're running right now under Wing. So if we had some debugging statements in there, we could stop it at that point to make some changes. And there's another really cool feature about Wing, and that is that if you have an exception, you take an exception, and it's unhandled or something of that sort, and you get into that environment, you can change variables right there, and then rerun that piece without having to start it over from scratch. So if you have a bunch of state that got set up, and you have a little piece you want to play with, you can do that with Wing. So anyway, and as usual, just sort of standard environment. So let me just change gravity a little bit there, you know, we'll see a little bit of difference. So anyway, so that's pretty easy to use. That's that. I wanted to show you one of the larger projects I did on this. Oh, the first thing I wanted to point out about this is that try doing some of this stuff under idle sometime, because idle is TK based, and I found that was really hard. When I first started writing Python, I had to very quickly write a GUI, and I really have written one other GUI in my life, one other GUI application in my life, and it was pretty darn simple. So I felt a little bit intimidated. But since you know, there was a GUI built in, I just said, well, let's go try it. I mean, let's go try TK. What the hell? It can't be that bad. Well, it was okay for a while, but what I found was trying to run idle and then trying to run TK was really driving me mad. And so this environment, there's no real problem with that. I ended up using the same project, so that did run TK. So let me just find that here for a moment. I know. Let me just get that thing here for a second. That would be Python. This is probably pretty gross doing it like this, but too bad. So anyway, this consists of just a number. It just looks like just a big pile of Python, and that's certainly what it looks like. But again, if I execute this, under here, there's a sort of, let's see. So I'm going to open up something here. This is some giant file. So this is it's a pretty reasonable. I mean, at least for what we needed, it certainly served our purposes, and it works fine, and you know, it has buttons, and they kind of do their thing, and all this stuff sort of works. So, but this is all TK, and I never have any problem writing these simple TK apps in Wing IDE. I wanted to mention some other things that this thing had, in addition to named bookmarks. Yes. I think it's WX. But is it? Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what you meant when said something about idle using TK and using TK.
Yes. Well, if you idle's environment is built out of TK widgets, and so when you use it, idle gets confused, and so you have slop, and or it crashes or wedges or in some way or something like that, and that just doesn't happen. So what I find is that TK actually is sort of okay for small things that you want to whip together just so you have some kind of control panel. But if you want to do something really real, what you want, I think, is something else. So let me close this project. Also, let's get rid of this too, which I will. Oh, I don't need to show you Emacs guys stuff like this or stuff like this, right? I mean, you know all that stuff. So it does all that and a whole lot more. So let me just close this off and show you how it's integrated in this environment. So I finally figured out that yes, I wanted to use WX Windows because it had a lot more power. So what I can do is just take, for example, this thing here and drag it over here, and there it is. So there's this application. Now this screen resolution isn't quite right for this particular thing, but this is a WX application run inside of Wing IDE, and all these things are movable. I mean, they sort of work, but they're just not connected to anything, right? And these things here, but they're fairly easy to connect, and I can show you some of that code. What I also wanted to show you is how that was built. This is a separate application called WX Designer. I mentioned I'd try to sneak this in, Marilyn, because I use it a lot. So this thing here, all this crap here, I changed a little of it to put my name in and stuff like that, but most of this stuff is in this other file, which I will now bring over here like that. And all this crap here, I'll show you. Man, there it is. There it is. All this application. It's all generated by the builder. So let me show you that too now. And then I'll wrap up and tell you a little bit the last few features about this that I think are pretty amazing. So this is the WX Designer that uses this, and this is that particular notebook that we just saw. This is not part of Wing. This is part of the WX Designer. It's a different program. It costs money, but it integrates well with Wing, and you can see that even though Wing is written in WX, having this additional application written in WX, there's just no interference in it and works very smoothly, even on these really old machines. So anyway, this is what I did in order to build this thing up, and it's just like you would expect for any sort of builder. Is this stuff is here, and you can type in there and change it and whatnot, and anyway, and each of these is available, and their peculiar coding mechanism doesn't take you too long to figure out what most of this stuff does. Yes. I believe it's written in Python. It's certainly slow enough.
How much does it cost?
Okay, so that's do I have the exact number here? I think it's around $30 if you want the personal edition. If you want the professional edition, it's $180, which is what I'm showing you here. And if you get it on multiple operating systems, like if it's personal, it's like 30 and 45 and 60, and it's like 180, 2 something, 395 for 3 operating. So for 1, 2, or 3 operating systems. There are some features that are disabled in the personal version, but for example, there is some really nice stuff here. This thing can do, and I've never tried it though. But Alex recommended this to me a long time ago. I said, Alex, I'm looking for an I'm looking for an IDE, and I really want something sort of reasonable. He thought for a really long time, and he says, try Wing. He had a hard time remembering the name, but he says, try Wing, because at one point they had a plone bug that they just could not fix. He was on some project, there was some nasty plone bug. But with this, they were able to run plone under this and find this. It was apparently a pretty rare, strange bug. So, and some guy that they brought in was a really sort of wizard at this sort of thing. So I realized, well, being pretty good at this might have some future job opportunities. So I wanted to be good at that. But it also has integration with CVS, version, Perforce. Let's see, and of course Plone and Zope, and I think a few other sort of sort of stuff that we use or we could use all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, 2 years ago, you told me you were working on an open source application that would give it to you for free, professional version.
That's interesting. Boy. Let's see, what else?
Shall we move on to random access?
Yeah, unless people want to play with this or know any more about it, but that's a pretty fast overview.
After random access,
I'd be happy to be
all
around.
4 of us, we're all right here.
Yeah.
So if you,
Wow. Thank you. That's Ron mighty fast.
it did have me salivating. That looks
you
like a really
salivating? There
good
you go.
thing.
Has
Yeah,
the
it looked
Emacs.
like a really that's what did it. Yeah, I'd know how to keystroke there. Oh, I shouldn't hold on to this because this is random access. And so if you have something you're interested in talking about and sharing with other people, you might raise your hand now and spend a minute telling us about it. And then we'll find you when we're finished and get together in little groups. Or questions, whatever you want. Or I guess it's random access.
Actually, I have a job opportunity to announce. My name is Dave Patterson. I work for Avistar Communications in Redwood City, and I'm in the software QA group. And currently we're developing a test automation framework built in Python. So I figured this might be the perfect place to come find candidates. So if you need any, or if you're interested, come talk to me and I have some information for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else? Well, what do you think? Should we close down a few minutes early and then go into... Oh, we got one. Oh, goody. Hi. Wes?
Okay, just a couple of things. Who's going to OSCON in Portland this month? That's sort of a Python conference. I think, Rob, you're giving a talk there too, right? Okay. Anybody else? Oh, him. He's giving a talk too. It's the 20th, tutorial day is like the 23rd, and then like the conference is the 24th through the 28th. So Wednesday through Friday, or 25th through the 28th. So it's like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, right. So 2 days of tutorials and then 3 days of conference. So that's coming in like 2 weeks. For those of you who are going, try and take notes at whatever talks you go to. Maybe we can give a rundown at a future Bay Piggies meeting. Okay, so that's one thing. Second thing is I'm also working part-time for a company that's looking for people. So Python, MySQL, SQL Object, WebWare, Cheetah. All right, so come see me for that. And also I'm having another public Python course in August that's about a month from now. And it's going to be at the San Francisco Airport location. So if you have a team that needs Python training, come see me. So that's... Oh, book update. A lot of editing going on right now. I've finished all of the red ink type stuff, and so now the compositors and the typesetting people are putting the final pages together, and the book should be out kind of end of August to beginning of September, right around the time when 2.5 comes out, coincidentally, and the new start of the next school year too. So. You can pre-order on Amazon today. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Wes. Here we have Ken Seahart. I'm sorry.
I just thought I'd mention that my former, well, hopefully to be former employer, I now work at the Internet Chess Club, but my employer before that needs to replace me, and I don't have time to keep working for them and find a replacement. But what I need is somebody who knows Zope and embedding things, Python on hardware. So if you're a hardware person and a Zope person, talk to me.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ken. JJ.
We're always looking for speakers for Bay Piggies. Next month we have a speaker for half the meeting, but and he might go the whole meeting if we can't fill another half a slot, but if someone wants to give half of a meeting's worth of a talk, that would be great.
What is the meeting? Who's the half person?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to embarrass you.
How long is a half hour talk do you have? 45, 36 minutes? Yeah, 45
There we
minutes,
go.
I think.
Anybody else? Hi.
Lately I've
Wait.
been
Here we have.
Lately I've been doing tool control with Python, cutting shapes out of paper, things like that. Anybody wants to chat, we can talk about hardware control and processing vectors.
Thank you, Drew. Ross?
Aren't we going to do, aren't we going to do reports from the conference next month?
I hadn't heard about that.
Well, I mean, a number of people are going to the conference. He said, write down what you had, and my presumption was that if they wrote it down, they might share it.
Well, we should talk on the list, maybe.
It doesn't have to be next month. The graphical concept doesn't have to be next month. There's already a talk. We can just save it for when there's no talks available.
He's saying it doesn't have to be next month. And he said that. Anything else? So are we good? So the people to run to, maybe raise your hand one more time. And all of us demo people should have our arms up, don't you think? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight, and hope to see you online and next time.